It's Sunday, October 27th, 2024, and my weather app says it's 7 degrees C out here. There's a good little, it seems like an east breeze, and boy, is it chilly. It is chilly. So, but you know what? We've got just light overcast, so the sun is still fairly prominent here, and the bees are flying. It's not full flight, but there's bees everywhere out here. That's pretty unusual. Now, I'm out here to do my fourth and final round of oxalic acid treatments. And, you know, one thing I've been considering is, do I do a fifth and a sixth and whatever? Because I don't think there's really any downside to it. The cost is not considerable. It's just time and effort to do it. It doesn't have a remarkably negative effect on the bees, as I understand. I've never seen any anyway. But we'll do the fourth and then we'll reevaluate. So if you have input on that, you leave some comments and let me know if you think I should do a fifth. I'm not doing washes. It's too cold to get into colonies. I'm not doing washes. I don't even have stickies and stuff, so, you know, sorry. I'm just not led to do that kind of thing. So I don't have numbers. I don't have data. I do know oxalic acid is highly effective, particularly this time of year with little to no brood. And I think 4 would be enough, because I don't know that I've ever really done 4. I may have done 4 in the past, but I do know the times that I did get some samples after my treatments that the mite numbers have dropped dramatically post-treatment. So I think 4 would be enough, and I'm confident not monitoring, which is a really bad thing to say, because monitoring after your treatment really is the most important time to monitor. Because, you know, somebody said something to me one day. They said, I don't do monitoring before I treat for mites, because I don't think there's any number, any information I could get from the monitoring, sampling, that would make me think, well, I'm not going to treat. And I think there's a lot of value in that statement. It's still not the party line. You really should do your sampling and monitoring, but, you know, it is what it is. So I've got my batteries and my chargers out here. I kind of messed up. One of my 5 amp batteries was not charged, so I've got it running right here. I can't see. It's got 3 bars of 4 right now. One of my little actually 2 of my little batteries weren't charged, but they don't really offer me that much, and they charge pretty fast anyway. So I put that one on, and it's 4 bars, but it's still not green. Yeah. So I think I've been going through a lot of this. I've been going through a lot of discussions with people, and they, you know, there's some people who have done research and found out information for me. I think it seems that there is a negative side to charging batteries fast. So I'm led to not charge my batteries fast. However, the negative side is just, you know, it cuts down on the life a little bit. And if I'm going to charge my batteries fast here while I'm doing an oxalic acid vapor, I'm really not charging my batteries, even all of my batteries, fast very often. You know, maybe 8-10 times a year. And that's not that bad, I think. Now, as far as the number of batteries, as stated, I have a 9, I have 3 5s. One of my 5s is on charge. I have a 3, and then I have a few smaller ones. There's a 2, and there's 3 that are 1.5. And again, those are really only good if you're totally out of battery juice and you got one more colony to do, or they'll do actually up to 3. Then those come into play then. The 1.5s will hardly warm up the tool. So they're really, you know, just for emergency use after the tool is hot. It's Wednesday, October 30, 2024. Tomorrow is the last day of October. Then we're into November, and that typically will mean the bees go inside for the winter within about a week. Now, I'm looking at the forecast, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any big rush to get the bees indoors. And you say, well, can't you put them indoors anyway? Maybe. And so here's the two factors that will determine when I move my bees indoors. I don't want to leave them out too long, and because I don't want to subject them to terribly cold temperatures, although the bees are very resilient and they're very good at staying warm. They're not as good at staying cool, but they're very good at staying warm. So I just sort of look at temperatures about -10 in the forecast. I'm talking C now. And when I start seeing overnight lows of -10 or colder, then I want to get the bees in. Now, it has to be colder because I don't have refrigeration in my bee barn, unlike some people. And therefore, the only thing I can use to cool the building after the bees are in there is the outside temperature, the outside air. And if the outside air is too warm, then I can't cool the bees enough. I would like to maintain 4 degrees or maybe a little less in there. I don't want it to go very much above 4 degrees. As the temperature in the building goes above 4C, the feed consumption, the metabolic rate and the feed consumption goes up pretty sharply between 4 and 10C. As the temperature drops below 4C, the feed consumption rises gently as it gets colder. So 10 degrees colder than 4 is far better than 5 degrees above 4. And the 4C number is the science behind wintering, and what they tell us is the optimal metabolic rate for the winter. And so it's all about feed consumption, and it's about making it cool enough the bees are going to stay indoors. The weather app right now says it's 3C out here. It's very sunny, and it's 11:30. It's not that early. So the sun is getting low in the sky for midday, and I can just feel a very mild breeze from the northeast here. So 3C, and so sunny that you can actually see some of the bees flying. So people ask me, what temperature will the bees fly? Well, I've seen them fly below freezing if it's sunny enough, and if they're desperate enough for a poop, I suppose. Now, why am I standing in my apiary with my oxalic acid and my batteries and my vaporizers? Well, you can probably guess why. I've done 4 rounds of oxalic acid vapor, 4 days apart. And I've been thinking about that whole situation and trying to do the math based on what I know about the life cycle of the bee and what I know about the life cycle of the mite. I learned a little bit more information last evening, so that pushed me out here today. I'd do it tomorrow because tomorrow is day 4. Today's day 3, but the weather tomorrow is going to be desperately terrible, and I actually have some other stuff I need to accomplish. So this is the deal. I've done 4 rounds. Okay, 4 rounds. And so that's only 12 days because round 1, and then 4 days later is 4, 4 days later is 8, and 4 days later is 12. So that number 12 is a very significant number in the life cycle of the bee because a brood cell is capped for 12 days. So it's capped, and 12 days later the adult bee will emerge. Now, I want to couple that with what I know about the life cycle of the mites. When a mite emerges from a cell, that mite needs to feed on adult bees for between 5 and 11 days. So let's take 5 as the short term. And after that 5 to 11 days, then that mite goes back in a cell and starts to reproduce again. So I think that's probably why 4 days is a good interval, because a mite should be phoretic for 5 days. It'll emerge from the cell. It will be phoretic for 5 days, and it's going to get caught in that 4-day cycle. So that's the idea there. The problem with doing 4 rounds is my 4th round was only on day 12. So I'm just not quite catching the end of that with the emerging brood. So I think a 5th round will then take me to 16 days overall throughout the treatment. And it also gives me an interval of 4, which is less than the 5 minimum for the mites. So it seems to me that that's a really good system. You could say, let's do 5 days 4 times, and you probably be good on that too, because that'll give you 15 days overall. But then you're riding that 5-day interval for the mite disappearing on you again. So 4 days seems to be really the right interval. Some guys do it less than that, which I think is fine. It seems that some guys are talking, well, I do it every week. Well, that's 7 days. So you're losing track of some of those mites in those extra 3 days. That's my logic, and that's why I'm here. So I have to get at this. This doesn't take long with the InstantVaps, but it still takes me a couple hours. So I've got to get at this and get her done. Thanks for watching. Okay, I didn't want to bore you with that because you've seen that a few times. I don't know, 2/3 of the way done. And I don't know if you can see the white oxalic acid container way over there. That's where my batteries ran out. So it was the far end, which it usually is because that's the way I work. So I'm letting my batteries charge here, and they're doing quite well. This one, we got 3 bars there, 3 bars there, so they're doing pretty good. I've got 3 and a 5 fully charged. There's a couple of 5s on there now. But in the meantime, I thought, I'll use my time to, as you can tell, it's a lovely day. It's not super warm. It's not short pants warm, but, it's barely warm enough to not have my jacket on. I thought I'd use my time to consolidate pallets, move some, single hives onto pallets with single hives. And in doing so, I want to show you one thing here that I discovered. I'll tell you about this later. This is kind of a test, a prototype of winter wrap. So you can see there's some empty spaces here, and you can't see empty spaces beyond that pile, but there are. Okay, so here's the bad news. I did an experiment with 10 colonies here, and they're all doubles, and my intention is to winter them all outside. However, I don't know if I get that chance because in the time that I've made that decision, I did not treat these at all. I only I added pollen patties to these after honey flow. I added Apitablets to these after honey flow, and I left them at that. Well, out of 10, there are 3 left. So they're not doing so well. There's 3 on this pallet. So 1, 2, 3. I added a healthy one beside that one. So, I don't think that's a solution, to be honest. I did just tip up a few singles, and they could be stronger. Some of them looked reasonable. None of them looked Ian Stepler strong. But some of them are really boxes of bees, and I didn't see any boxes of bees. I didn't tip them all up, but I just tipped up some random ones. And I actually found 2 dead ones, so I took those out. Yeah, so that's not very encouraging. But I have another problem, and I'll show you what that problem is. Now, I know this is going to be subtle, and it's going to be difficult to keep it framed. However, I noticed this wheel here started to move outward and come out of the hub. So I investigated, and what I learned was, I'll lay this thing down. What I learned was keeping the hub from coming off the axle is a cotter pin that is backed up by a plastic hub. And it's pretty tough plastic, but it's plastic no less. And so it's starting to deform, and it's starting to work its way out. It's going to fall off. And I think that hub is part of the rim. And I bought new rims and tires just as a backup. So I'm going to pull that out, take that wheel off. You see how this hub, I don't know if you can see, but this hub was coming right out like that. So it needs to be, there goes my pin. It needs to be put in there. This side is kind of hooped. So what I'm going to do is I went back to the shop and I got some 5/8 washers, which I can put, oh, they won't fit on that axle. I thought they were 5/8 like the axle, but I guess it's not. Okay. So I have to come up with a different plan. So these hairpins will actually work in there. I think maybe I'll just go back and get the other wheels. I noticed the replacement wheel I got has a metal hub. The problem is it's a 5/8 hub, and it looks like a 3/4 shaft. So I actually emailed the manufacturer this summer. I'm glad I didn't have a problem. These tires are awful cracked, so I bought backup tires. I'm glad I didn't have a problem because these wouldn't have worked. I emailed him and said, is that a 5/8 shaft? And he wouldn't give me a straight answer. The only thing he told me was, I can get you those cheaper than Princess Auto. These are $20 or $30 a piece. So I told him that I needed to get them the next day, and I'd be there at 5 o'clock, and that was not an issue. But I went there at 5 o'clock, and there was nobody there. He told me it was my fault for, I don't know. So I'm not happy at all. I'm not happy at all about this whole situation. That's a 5/8 hub. So I can take these back to Princess. They're very good with returns. And hopefully I can find something with a, see, that's got a nice bearing and stuff in it. This is garbage. This is not even a bearing. This is a piece of plastic that slides on a metal shaft. That's garbage, in my opinion. Really not happy with this whole situation at all. At all. I had a few years on this lifter, and I really like that I have it, but it's certainly not been trouble-free. These little hairpins go right in here. I don't need a cotter pin in there. Now, maybe I can get washers on the other side too. So flip it over. Well, I'm glad I didn't get the cheaper ones from him, because they probably would have been exactly that. Cheaper ones with plastic hubs. It's not what I'm looking for, you know. Spend the kind of money you spend on this sort of thing, you'd think it would have something a little better than plastic hubs. I think any kindergarten level engineer would agree that that's just not the way to go. This is getting pretty close. I'm not sure I can get another washer in there. Yeah, it's not enough clearance. Oh, okay, look at that. I got it in there. Okay, now I put that one on the inside because I've had also another difficulty with this as far as the wheels are concerned. I'll see if I can show you. So the difficulty I've had is centers around the clearance between this hub and the frame was not enough, and this wheel would rub on the frame here. Now I've got enough space in there that is stable. It doesn't float back and forth. I've still got plastic hubs, but what are you going to do? Since the guy couldn't even answer my question straight up, is it a 5/8 hub? And then it was a whole to-do after that. I know where Princess Auto is. I'll buy my own wheels. Just, answer the question. Well, sorry if I seem annoyed. That's only because I am. I'm very annoyed with this. Things could be so simple, right? A yes or no. Is it a 5/8 hub? Yes. No. 3/4. Okay. I don't get it. I do not get it. I don't know if you wanted a big man in town by saying, oh no, you got to buy those from me. It's cheaper. I don't care if it's cheaper. What I care about is blowing a tire in the middle of honey harvest, right? So I didn't blow a tire in the middle of honey harvest, not because these tires are in great shape. These tires are terrible. And not to discredit the manufacturer, they sit out in the sun a lot and they're kind of crappy Chinese tires anyway. So they definitely, go through the ringer with the sun. But, the point is, I wanted a backup set of tires because I could see these were cracked. They're cracked really bad. It's a good thing they have a tube in them. So I got those tires thinking I had solved the problem. Well, I didn't actually match the hub up. It seemed like that's what the store sold. So I don't know if they sell a larger hub tire or not. Anyway, that's just me. I'm annoyed with that whole thing. And I've got to get going and move some more of these doubles and, these oddball hives onto pallets with pallet mates. So. Oh, boy. That's another thing with this lifter is I don't know why the cradle on it, where it lifts the boxes, is on this plane, and yet the backer is more than an inch back. So you lift your boxes, they don't ride on there quite straight, and the second box can actually slide off of the top one. Slide off of the bottom one is what I meant to say. I should have checked that, Nothing like moving a beehive that's dead. No, it's not dead. All right. This double is quite heavy. Oh, see? Flops back like that. Let's do this before the bees get too upset with me. Uh-oh. Well, they're plenty upset. That's a strong colony. So last night we had a interesting talk on the live stream, and even afterwards. But the topic of how you manage, more than 20, 30, 50 colonies. And I can't say that I'm a master at this at all. It's difficult, and I think a lot of my difficulty is that I don't do it very efficiently. But suffice it to say, out of that conversation, as I kind of talked about different things, you know how when you talk about something, it starts to make sense, and concepts start to formulate in your mind. So one of those concepts is the scale that you manage, and I don't mean the hive numbers either. For example, when I bring my colonies out in the spring, I count alive and dead, right? Maybe 3 scenarios: alive and dead and barely alive, perhaps. But beyond that, we get into May, and I start to look into the frames. I start to look, how's the queen performing? Do I think this queen is going to need to be replaced? Do they have a queen at all? I'm looking for disease, always looking for disease, right? Is there anything strange here? So I'm managing the frame level. So I'm managing the frames in the hives, and that definitely is the most kind of time consuming and labor intensive part of beekeeping. So then I want to do splits. Again, I'm managing the frames. Maybe a little less so intensively, because I can, the way I make splits, I can pull brood above a queen excluder, shake the bees off, and that kind of makes my split for me. But, so it gets a little less granular as we're getting into that. And then, through June, then I'm looking at the colony as a whole. How much brood is there? How strong are they? Are they going to swarm? Do I need to address that? On and on. We get into late June, early July, that's honey season. So we stop managing the brood chamber altogether pretty much, and then concentrate on honey production. And of course, pretty well that's by the box. I'm managing the boxes then. And so I'll manage the boxes right through summer. after the honey flow, I may briefly manage the colony or the frames just to see, you know, after the honey flow, I like to do a queen check, because if a colony is queenless, A, I want to address that, and B, I don't want to waste, you know, $30 worth of feed on that colony and treating and all the stuff I'm doing here with the oxalic acid, etc. So that's a brief dip into the frame level, or at least into the hive. So then after that, we're feeding the colony, we're feeding the hive. We don't really open that colony too much, depending on our treatments. You know, I did some formic, I had to open the lids. One of the nice things about oxalic acid here, I don't need to open. I just in the entrance, and Bob's your uncle. So then the next progressions here for me, and this doesn't go for everybody. This goes for my operation. So as I get through into October and mid-October, I need to start making winter plans. Some of these I have to wrap, so I need to know how many wraps I need to buy or make or whatever. So I'm counting colonies, right? So I want to know how many colonies I have, indoors, outdoors. But also more than that is I transition really quickly into counting pallets. So now the unit is the pallet, because the pallet is what I have to wrap and winter outdoors, or I have to put in my building, so I have to know how much space to have. But even beyond that, at this point, I'm counting stacks. So a pallet is 2, a stack is 8, because a pallet is 4, or a stack is 4 pallets high, so that's 8. So the stack is what relates to the space in the building. So now I can take, if I have 80 colonies, well, that's 10 stacks. And I think I'm going to have, with my singles and my 6-frame nukes, I think I'm going to have about 10 stacks. So it's different math, right? Because if you just count colonies, the nukes have 3 and the colonies here have 2. So you can't just divide by 2. So that's why it's handy for me to say, let's count the pallets and not just the colonies. And then I know how that relates to the building. So it's just kind of interesting how that conversation went last night, and that progression just sort of started to make itself really clear in my head, that as different seasons approach, and as time goes on in the fall, I go from managing frames to colonies to hives to pallets to stacks. Of course, the outdoor winter ones won't get stacked, so they just go by the pallet. All right, my batteries are actually getting charged here. I've been working at this, and I think I have made some really good progress. Unfortunately, I did find 2 or 3 dead ones, which I'll take out, and I tipped up quite a few, and I'm cautiously optimistic about this winter. A lot of these 6-frame nukes I think are in pretty good shape. Some of these 10-framers maybe not. I think I should have got on mite treatments sooner. I think I should have got on mite treatments harder before honey flow, and actually after honey flow got on mite treatments. I did get on the formic pretty soon after honey flow, so that wasn't too bad. But the effects of that, the negative effects of that, are still in my mind. Was that a good choice? Did that kind of doom my bees to burn all that brood in September? That brings another point I've been thinking about, and I wanted to talk about. The formic acid that I did 4 rounds a week apart, and that was a bad schedule. I should have done 4 rounds 4 or 5 days apart. And I think I explained that with the life cycle of the mites, the life cycle of the bees. However, just in broad terms, comparing oxalic acid with the formic acid that I used, the formic acid that I used, and again, it was liquid formic acid on a dry lock pad in the hive. You may see some of them laying around the apiary here. I'm not very good at cleaning up sometimes. And so what it is it's, it's a little bit of work. I have to take the formic acid and drench the pads and open the colonies and put 2 pads on the colony and close the lid. So I have to do that every time. And I find that one of the worst things is trying to get the old pad off. They propolize it really hard, and it's difficult to, very sticky, and I'm wearing gloves because I'm handling acid, and then I'm stuck to this dry lock pad. But regardless of that, I'm just weighing the work involved against the work involved with oxalic acid. And with these new vaporizers, boy, these have made a world of difference in that comparison. So the formic acid, I understand it gases off in 3 or 4 days, if that, and it has a kill of 3 or 4 days. But it also, it can compromise the brood. Typically, the dry lock pad method doesn't compromise the queen, but it definitely, squelches the brood production. And so it's not killing mites under the caps, so you don't get that advantage. What I'm thinking is there's no advantage to the dry lock pad and formic acid over oxalic acid, because oxalic acid is cheaper, it's faster. I don't have to open the hive and shoot it in the entrance. It kills for 24 to 36 hours. It's highly effective. It doesn't kill under the caps, just like the formic dry lock idea, but it doesn't kill the brood, and it's not really hard on the bees. So I've been really contemplating those 2 comparisons, and I'm thinking that even though we always come down on oxalic acid vapor and say, oh yeah, but it kills ferretic mites for like 24 hours and that's it. Okay, well, kind of so does that formic dry lock pad idea. It maybe kills ferretic mites for 48 hours or something, which is not that much better. Yeah, so I'm really thinking that next year, pre-season, post-season, meaning honey flow, I'm going to be probably doing this oxalic acid regime way more often. There's no reason I can't come out here once a week and treat these bees, keep those mites down, so then they don't get sick. I had a viral analysis done this fall. The viruses were, medium to high. The deformed wing virus was quite high. So I think some of these test hives were in that set, but I think that sample was done before I did a lot of treating, so they should have all been kind of the same. So anyway, those are the things that I think of while I'm working here. So I appreciate you listening to that, and I hope you found it at least modestly interesting and perhaps even helpful. I'm glad I got my lifter thing fixed for now until the next thing goes wrong with it. And I'm going to go and do some more oxalic acid now that my batteries are charged. So thanks for watching. Take care and have fun.